Hello and welcome to Purple Bunch. Today we're going to be looking at Life is Strange Double Exposure. I'm a huge fan of the franchise, and I've played all the games outside Before the Storm multiple times. And so when Double Exposure came out, I decided to wait a little bit for a sale because I saw the reviews were a bit mixed. I will be avoiding spoilers, by the way, but we will be spoiling Life is Strange 1. So if you have not played Life is Strange 1, I do 100% recommend that game before you play Double Exposure. Now to that topic, the story. If you don't know anything about Life is Strange, Double Exposure, basically the overarching story is we are playing Max again, and she experiences another friend's death. Her name's Sophie. This happens pretty early in the game. So when this happens, Max just wakens up with a new power. This power is to see into an alternate reality. And in this reality, her friend is alive. And when you start exploring these realities, you do start finding different things that start happening or small changes here and there. So that concept of the game does lead to some very interesting moments, especially when it comes to Max traveling to the reality where her friend is dead. And her friends are mourning the loss of Sophie. And then she jumps back to the reality where Sophie's alive, and then these people aren't, obviously mourning. And it does lead to this interesting concept. Now, unfortunately, Life is Strange Double Exposure does fall flat, especially when it comes to the last two episodes of the game. And that is the biggest disappointment of this game, in my opinion, is the last two episodes feel like almost 3x or 4x speed. The best way to describe this is you wrote your essay for her school and you wrote 3/4 of it, but then you forget it, you put it down, you went to bed, and then all of a sudden you forgot, and it's the day the assignment's due, and you have to finish that last 1/4. So you just start scrambling whatever you can, making run-on sentences, etc., just to finish it. And that's kind of how Life is Strange Double Exposure feels when it comes to episode 4 and 5, which leads to kind of a disappointing / flat ending. That is what made me maybe the most disappointed about Life is Strange Double Exposure, was just how the ending ended up falling flat, because it does end up setting up something interesting that could be kind of cool for future games. And I would kind of like to see that play out in the future. But just the overarching story, that last two episodes kind of, I wouldn't say 100% ruined it for me, but definitely took me out of being as engaged in the story as I was for the first 3 episodes. Now, I do want to talk about the side characters and stuff like that, because when it comes to Life is Strange, a lot of the main juice also does come from a lot of the side characters, the romance and stuff like that. So romance wise, I will say falls a little flat also, especially compared to True Colors. You don't get too much screen time with the romance options, which does lead to a little bit of you kind of not knowing them as well as you did, again, compared to its counterpart, True Colors, where True Colors, the romance options were kind of entangled with the main story and played a bit more into it. This one, they feel a lot more like side characters that don't get super developed, which is kind of disappointing. But there are some still cool moments with them. Just, I wish there was more screen time with them. The biggest side character that gets developed, his name's Moses, and he does carry it quite a bit when it comes to the emotional side of the story. And Sophie is also another character that gets well developed. These two are probably the only ones that get developed the most, which kind of sucks because there's a lot of interesting side characters which could have used a little bit more screen time. Gwen was a very interesting character that I kind of wish had more screen time. It was weaker overall compared to the other games because they just didn't get enough time on screen. A lot of the time on screen I feel like is Max kind of just jumping between realities, which again isn't bad. It just made a lot of the characters not as well developed, especially considering you have to develop almost 2 different characters for each reality. So you don't get as much development for, let's say, Moses, who lives in the reality that Safi died. But that's my overall thoughts on the story. I didn't hate it at the end, but I was left disappointed by the end. And I would still like to see more of what they set up and stuff like that in future games. Now to go over the gameplay. The gameplay in Life is Strange is pretty, it's one of these story-driven games. The main gameplay is the choices, the story and stuff like that. But you do walk around, you do have a little jog button, and you do have like this pulse that lets you see the other reality, which kind of like lets you snoop in sometimes into other character dialogue that won't normally talk when they see you nearby or stuff like that. And then there's weak points in reality, which lets you jump between the 2 different realities. That's really it when it comes to the gameplay. Now I do want to talk about the graphics and the performance. I did play this with a 4070 Ti, and I was playing at 4K 60. I put the resolution scale somewhere around 90%, but I was getting about a solid 60. And visually, I do think the game is very appealing. It is going again for like the true colors, more realistic cell shading art style that Life is Strange has kind of turned towards recently. And I do like it. Visually, there was several moments where it was very appealing. Several moments where I decided to screenshot because I was like, that actually makes a very great and beautiful background. So visually, pretty good game. Audio wise, Life is Strange does have a lot of indie music, and I do think they bring this back in with double exposure. I did like the music overall. Now my final thoughts on this game and what matters in the overall when it comes to games, and kind of the point of my reviews. I don't leave scores. I just talk about if I had fun, and kind of just talk about the pros and cons of the game. Did I have fun with Life is Strange double exposure? At first I did, but towards the end of the game as the story kind of devolved into a little bit of a mess, I was having a little bit less fun, but I was still being entertained. But by the end of the game I did feel like I had a lot of mixed feelings of this game, which sucks because I am a huge Life is Strange fan. And that's the best way I can describe it. It was a mixed bag. I wanted to love it so much, but by the end, I just can't say I loved it. Am I glad I played it? I am glad I played it, but it's definitely not a Life is Strange game I will replay, unlike their counterparts, which is True Colors 1 and 2, which I've said I've played at least each one 3 times bare minimum. I do appreciate y'all watching this video, and if you're interested in more of these fun factor style reviews, I try doing them as much as I can, so I hope you join me for future videos, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.